Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Getting back to work on the MR2 in this video. Last couple of videos on this car, I was working on the suspension, getting everything as far as the struts replaced, and did an alignment on it. Now I'm going to be finishing up the things I need to do to get the car back on the ground. First thing I do need to do is get that piece of trim off that broke from being hit by the tire when it bottomed out, so I can go ahead and repair that, and then do a little clearancing just to make sure that doesn't happen going forward. And then I should be able to put a few other little things back together and then get it back on the ground. So that being said, going to get the camera turned around and get back to work on the car. So real quick before I get started, and I do apologize, landscapers just showed up across the street and are cutting my neighbor's grass, so they're of course making a ton of noise. But yeah, one thing I want to show before I get started is in the last video, I put some sealer on the axle where it was leaking. It's been like a week and a half since then, and we have had some scorching temperatures. And as you look on the ground, there's no new spots of dripping. You can see like the old stain, but that is dry. That's not anything wet. I just went in there and looked, and there is no sign of it leaking at all. So fingers crossed that little smear of silicone around the perimeter will do the job and don't have to worry about it anymore. So I'm going to get the trunk opened up and start getting that piece of trim removed so I can go ahead and fix it. As you can see, broken piece of molding has been removed. I did have to loosen up the taillight to the two screws here so I could pull it forward a little bit. And then it was the 3 studs, 2 are inside the trunk on the side, 1 is in the wheel well on the side, and then there's the Phillips screw hole right there. But again, you can see where it's cracked. So what I'm gonna do is try and get some JB weld, maybe put a reinforcement behind it. It's pretty close to the actual framing, so I don't know what I can do there as far as a reinforcement. But I'm gonna mess with it, see if I can figure out a way to make this a little more solid. And then I'll probably end up cutting where you can see the tire was rubbing just to give it a little more clearance. JB quick weld has been applied. I got it, it's pretty well built up there in that crease, so it should harden pretty quick. I'll give it 24 hours, make sure everything cures perfectly. But this stuff, the quick weld cures pretty quick. So I'll come back tomorrow to make sure everything is good to go, and then I can just trim off the piece I want to trim off, and then put a little touch up. Because the crack's still going to be visible somewhat, so I'll just throw some touch up on that, try and fill it in. I mean, it's going to be low to the ground and not very noticeable unless you poke your head into the wheel well, but still want to clean it up, make it look as good as possible. So that being said, gonna let this harden. We'll come back tomorrow. It's the next day and the JB weld has cured on the molding. Before I start messing with that, I do have another little project I need to work on, and that is the cross brace here, as well as these 2 plates that go in the engine bay. With the 2 GR intake manifold, there's really limited options as far as braces, and the one that I had on the car no longer works. The OEM one will clear the 2 GR intake manifold, and you can get a Cusco one to go across the back, but I'm just going to go with this for now. As down the road, I think I am going to upgrade to the Frankenstein intake, so I really don't want to start dumping a ton of money into other cross or brace bars, because the Frankenstein one might work with the other one that I already have. So I will cross that bridge when I get there. But what I need to do is clean these items up. So I'm going to go ahead, scuff, and start getting some paint on these so I can get them installed in the car. Everything has been hit with a little scuff pad, as you can see down there, and then went over with brake clean, so there should be no oils or residue on anything. So I'm gonna go ahead, get this stuff outside, start putting some paint on it, and see how things turn out. 3 coats of chassis black later, looking pretty good. So I'm gonna let these things cure overnight and then see what the final result is, and hopefully get them installed in the car. Been a few days since the last clip. Everything has had a good chance to harden and cure. Molding's sitting over there, and then the things I painted are hanging where I left them on the snowblower. Had a few things I had to wrap up on the Cobra to finish the video that I put out last week. So those are done, and I'm now going to get back to work on this. So I'm going to start with trimming the molding, remove the area that's kind of got the witness marks from where the tire was rubbing it. Need to do the same thing with the bumper cover. There was a little spot there that it was hitting. So I'm just going to use a Dremel with a little cutoff wheel, cut those areas off, and I can use some touch-up paint to cover the areas where it's been cut off at, and then I can get the molding reinstalled and the taillight put together, and this wheel well repair will be done. Pretty straightforward. You can see I cut off the area where the witness marks were where it was rubbing on this, as well as the bumper, just a little bit of area there that I had to grind off. So like I said, I'm gonna go ahead and get some touch-up paint, clean these things up a little bit, and then get them installed back on the car. Everything reinstalled, touched up, good enough as far as I'm concerned. So all set as far as this repair over here goes. I can go ahead and get this wheel reinstalled. Now that being said, while I was doing this, I looked under the car and noticed, not there by the crack, those are paint, but furthest away little spot is an oil spot. And that is similar to the issue I had on this side, where it is a little bit of liquefied grease coming out of the inboard CV joint where there's no seal. So I'm gonna do the same thing on that side that I did on this side, and that's basically clean it up really good and just run a really thin bead of RTV all the way around it, great stuff, silicone all the way around it to seal it up. So far, as I said previously, this side has not dripped again since I did it. That's the spot right there on the floor towards the lower bottom, and it is dry. That's just the stain from when it previously leaked. So that fix seems to be holding up on this side. I'm gonna go do the same thing on the other side real quick, and then I can get the wheel installed on this side and get the car back on the ground. Cleaned off all of the oil. So this is the area I'm talking about, where this like zinc covered wraps over the center bearing. That's where it's seeping out of that gap there. So I'm gonna go ahead, grab the gray great stuff and just run a bead around there, just kind of wedging it in that little groove between the cap and the bearing housing, and hopefully that'll seal it up and no more dripping from this side. There it is. That is the same thing I did on the other side. Just like I said, thin bead of gray right stuff all the way around where that gap is, just trying to kind of fill it in and keep any of that liquefied grease from spilling out whenever it gets really hot outside. So gonna let that cure really good, and then we should be done as far as the underside of the car goes. I'm gonna get the wheel put back on the passenger side and get this thing back on the ground. As you can see, back on the ground, I went around, torqued all the wheels to 76 foot-pounds per the big green book. Set the tire pressures 30 PSI front, 34 rear. And you can see I now have the rear strut bar and plates reinstalled after repainting them. The nuts on the top of the struts are 59 foot-pounds, and the two that go to the firewall I torqued to 37 foot-pounds per the specs I found online. And final result, got everything wiped down around the engine bay and got the side blades reinstalled. So all set here with this area of work. I think next on the list, I may go into the interior. I have a new glove box door to install, a used one obviously, but the paint's kind of all flaked off of it. I found a used one, so I'm gonna grab that and see if I can get those things swapped out. So like I said, next thing on the list is I'm gonna swap out the glove box doors, and you can see I have the one out of the car already. Pretty easy to do. It's actually hinged at the bottom, and there are these push clips that are your hinge pins. They come from the inside to the outside, both ways, and you basically just need to get behind it with like a flathead screwdriver or something, and this will pop through, and then you just kind of get your finger back there in the groove and pull the head through each way. So that is how you get it removed. Once those are removed, then you can unlatch it and work the glove box door out of the framework, because you do have the catches. So that's pretty straightforward. So I'm going to move over and show you the two doors. So here is the door that I pulled out, and as you can see, the paint's just worn away, just from use and abuse and wear and tear. Actually, with the glare from my flash or the camera light, it doesn't show as much, but it's all worn along the top and around the latch assembly. So definitely a little bit worn. Here is the one that I'm replacing it with. And you can see I've actually already removed the latch from this one because I'm swapping them, so the key will work. But other than just a few little marks around the keyhole, this one is much better condition. No paint missing or anything like that. Just a few little scratches here and there, but overall not too bad. As far as the latch goes, on the inside there's 2 screws. You can see the holes right there. You remove those and you can walk the latch out of the hole there. So this is the latch that I pulled out. I'm gonna go ahead and pull out the one from my door and swap it into the new door. There's one other thing I'm gonna point out in case it's something that would matter to you. This is the inside of the box from the one I'm pulling out of the car. Being that it's a US market car, you can see all the different stickers that are in there. The one I'm replacing it with, much more basic, just one little sticker there. I got this from a seller in Italy. I'm not sure what exact market it was built for, but it definitely is not a US car. So gonna have a different sticker in there, but other than that, it's gonna work just fine, fit in the same spot, and look a lot better. So I already got the latch out of mine. I'm gonna go ahead and get it installed in the new box to get things cleaned up and get it reinstalled. Well, I installed it, and side by side it wasn't that noticeable, but sitting in the car shadowed, you can see it's a different color. It's much more blackish versus charcoal. So looks like this might be a loser, and I might have to go back to my original door. Kind of a bummer there. Yeah, so back to square one, I guess. It looks like I'm gonna be pulling this out, putting the old one back in. Next day, went ahead and pulled the glove box back out. And here you can see the 2 side by side. The one right here, that is my original from the car. This is the one that was in there that, you know, when it's sitting in there definitely looks a little bit darker. And in the sun, you can kind of see it's a little bit darker. Not by much, it's pretty crazy. It looks like the change was actually mid-year 93. Mine, I think, is an early 93. I'm guessing the glove box is out of a late 93 or later, depending on whatever market it came from. So anyway, what I decided to do is I'm going to put my original back in the car for now, and that way I'm not messing it up. And I am going to order some interior paint from SEM. From everything I've read online, it appears to be really high quality stuff. They have a graphite color that I think is going to be pretty close to right for what I need to do. It looks like it's a very, very dark gray, so I think that's going to be a pretty decent match. But I figure I don't want to mess up my original one, being that it is at least closer to the dash. I'd rather mess around with the one that's not close to the dash color-wise. So I'm going to go ahead, get the latch reinstalled in my original, and get that put back in the car. All right, so I got the glove boxes swapped and the original put back in the car. And decided to move some things around and take this thing for the first test drive that I've taken it on since doing the suspension. It's actually the first drive it's been on since like last November, October, whenever it was that I put it away for the winter. I can say I'm very impressed with the KYB GR2s. It definitely firmed things up over those blown stockers that have been in it for a long time, and it's all I ever experienced. Alignment feels dead on. Steering wheel is perfectly centered. Definitely feels a little more twitchy, so it was off when I realigned it, so I'm guessing that's part of it. But it's definitely, I mean, it's track straight, it's perfect from that aspect. But definitely, steering input, it's, as soon as you put a little into it, it definitely turns a lot sharper than it used to. So that's kind of nice. And like I said, it's definitely more of a firm ride, but not too bad. So it's definitely doable. So that being said, I think I am going to call this a video here. Covered a decent amount of stuff, and I got the car out on the road for the first time, so that is a huge win. More to come on this down the road. I have plenty of projects. I need to do some restoration stuff with the glove box, the headlights, surrounds. That's a whole other thing I need to discuss, as well as some other items. Also still have some projects with the Cobra, and I've been ordering more and more parts for the Jeep. So there are going to be videos coming up on all 3. So if you want to follow along, please hit like, please hit subscribe, please hit the notification bell. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section. I do review them. I will respond. That being said, thank you very much for watching, and have a great day.